There was a question about playing games for spelling and doing it virtually. And most of us have lots of games for reading, but how do you gamify spelling? And most of the time I don't, right? Because I want them to spell. But there are times when you need to change things up. So I do have a couple of games I play for spelling to reinforce our spelling. And I'll just show you one of the things I've done in person. So it's what inspired my virtual version of it. This is I would call it my phonogram twister, or I suppose we should now be calling them grapheme twisters. This is a very durable piece of canvas, and I painted on it. And I would paint out all the graphemes, and then we'd play a twister on it. So this was during the summer. I had a summer class, and we would practice our spelling words this way. And everyone would gather around, and we call out a spelling word, and they would, put hands on it if there was a bunch of them, or there would be hands and feet if I just had two at a time. And we play it like a twister, and I'd call out the word, and they segment it and find the graphemes that would represent the sound that they had segmented. So that's what I would do in person. And let me show you my virtual version of it. My virtual version, I made a sheet that had in a grid the phonograms or the graphemes, and I would stick in a silent E. And I have it arranged by the most common ones in the center and then less common around the edge. And this is in a Jamboard. And if I had a small group, I would call out a spelling word, and the kids would then go and segment it. So if the word was noun, there'd be the n, and then the ow here, and then n again. And we could play it as a twister, where they would just put their pieces on, or we could play it as bump. So one would do that, and if they put two on one, then they couldn't be bumped off. But if they only had one on one circle on a grapheme, then the other person could bump them off and grab it with their spelling word. So this was with me calling the words and kids using this to help them spell the words. And that worked with small groups, and that worked with an individual if we were just going to do a quick practice. But to make it a game with one person, it was like, oh, that's not very fun. And then I'm calling all the words. I mean, I've done it with kids where I would call a word for the child, and then I would call a word for me, and I'd play the other piece. But obviously, they figure out that I can see the word, and they'd say it wasn't fair. But we would do this. I would use this board for other things as well. I could use this for an auditory drill where I might say, just to change things up, find all the graphemes that represent the sound A, and they would go in and, find A says A, and well, here I have the EI, EY, and EIGH that say A, and I have the EA that says A, and I have the AY and the AI that say A, and we would just do that. We could do this for an auditory drill. But for the spelling, I would say the word, and they would use the markers to indicate the spelling of the word after they've segmented it. The other thing I've done, which it took me a while to figure out how to do this, is that I built the same thing in Playing Cards IO. And in Playing Cards IO, you can actually put the cards in, and when you pull a card into your hand, the other people don't see it. So I'm going to pull this up on my another device, and I'm going to bring it up on an incognito window on the side, so you can see what it looks like for two people playing. So I would just take, get a shareable link and send it to my student, and they would open it up on their computer. They would still hear me talk, but they're looking at this window. So here we go. And let me just recall all of these. Okay, so this is my hand here. These are the words. Oh, let me first explain how I'd play it. I would say, call all of these and it shuffles it. I'm going to take this word in here. My student doesn't see this word, so I would call to my student, your word is world. And they would go and do, okay, so we have the W-O-R for the word, and then a O, and then a D. Where did the D go? My students are usually faster at finding where they are than I am. Okay, they've got world. And now my student, and I'm going to do this on the other device, my student pulls down a word. You can see the student pulling down the word, but when the student puts it into his hand, I can't see it. So these are words that my student, you know, when I do a fry list or whatever list, I know that these are ones that my student needs to practice reading and spelling. So my student now has to read the word to me, and then they will check my spelling against their card that they see. So my student, I can just pull it out so you can see it. This is the card that my student has. When it goes into my student's hand, I can't see it. So the student says to me, the word is known, and I'm going to think, okay, known. Oh, that's spelled with a KN to spell. Oh, let's see. How do we spell that? Oh, I think it's with a O, and let them say, wrong. And it's like, oh, okay, wait. It's spelled with a OW, the OW to spell O, and then and so they can listen to me spell or spell incorrectly and correct it. So they're looking at the word, they've read it, and I spell it. Let's see, I'm still looking for the N. Or let's see, the more common ones are about around closer to the center. There I am. And I read it to them and they spell it. They pick a card, read it to me, and I spell it. And you know, when I'm done, I can put it here in my discard, and they can put their card here in the discard. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pull this card here. They don't see it. I see it. And I'm going to ask them to spell material. They would do their things, and then they would pull a card down into their hand and ask me to spell, it's actually the word here, right? But when they have it in their hand, they can read it to me and I have to spell it. So this allows them to both read and spell, and then check my spelling against what they have. And I, of course, check their spelling against the word. And I can play this as a bump. I can play it as 4 in a row or whatever. So we'll play until one person has 4 in a row, however I want to play it, or for whatever amount of time that I have that we might play this. So this is the one I do. And what I do is I create this card deck for each student. So I would duplicate this game and put in the spelling words for that student. And then once I know that they're really secure on that, I come in here and I edit my deck of words here. I can add and remove and say, okay, I don't need this word anymore. I can take it out. And then I can go at the bottom and add new cards and put in more words, whatever I need to. So I can change this and then change it up for each student if I want to. So this is my spelling game in Playing Cards IO. And then I have the same thing in a Jamboard. You know, I just take that image and put it as a Jamboard. So I have other videos explaining how to use custom backgrounds in Playing Cards IO and how to set it up. If you're not used to it, it is a little tricky at first. But once you get it, the idea, if you're just going to make a card, you're going to type the words into the card, it's easy. And then you can find the options of duplicate this game board and then change out the cards, put in different cards. And you could do that. Here's another spelling game I have in Playing Cards IO. And this is when I've had a physical game board and I had the physical cards. And so I just made the game board in an image of the game board in Google Slides, and then put the image here into Playing Cards as a background. But I done this in Jamboard as well. When I'm holding the physical cards and I can just call the cards, but now I have it in Playing Cards.io. And here, you know, I have the pieces in, and we're here, however many pieces I need. And then we read the word. So I have the word wet and I want to add the suffix ish. What do I do? And I want my student to say WETTISH. We double the T. They do it correctly. They roll the dice and they move those pieces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I just made an image here in Google Sheets and then just downloaded the image as a JPEG or a PNG and then stuck it into here as a background. So when I make the games in Google Sheets, I just make it a generic. I don't make it where it says, you know, this is for suffixes necessarily, because I make a game board and then I might play it with different cards. We add suffixes and win a bull. How do we spell it? And then, you know, and late and and how do we spell it? And I want my student to be able to spell it and tell me what the rule is for adding the suffix. You know, do we drop the E? Do we double the consonant? Do we change the Y to the I? Whatever it is. And I just make the cards and then play the game here to support the spelling. Here's another, I call it a game because, you know, if you give points, anything's a game. And this is just a Google Sheets, and I would keep score off on the side here. And I've done it where I've shared the sheet with my student, and so my student enters and we work collaboratively, and then the student has to type out the word with the spelling. Or I've done it where it's like, oh, we only have 3 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to send you into it, so just you tell me the spelling, and then I'll just indicate points. And I have a list of, I have various games here. I have an E drop, the 1-1-1 rule, the Y to I rule, and then all of them all together. And we'll practice, okay, on this one, this is E dropping. Do I need to do anything when I add the ED? And they'll go in and write, you know, ranted without it. And so I have some that, and if they spell it correctly, they get so many points. If they spell it correctly and tell me why they spell it, then they get, you know, 2 points more or whatever. And I can either just play with one student and say, okay, we're going to play until you know, we have 3 minutes, see how many points you can get this time. Or I might say, well, we're going to play until we get to, you know, 75 points or something. And, you know, whatever works. And if I have a combination that cannot be made, then if they say, oh, that's not you know, that doesn't work, we can't do that, then I give them points for saying that. Because what I've done here is I've just made a list of a bunch of words here, and then I've put in my suffixes, and these are the inflectionals that ER, or not all are inflectionals, sorry, but these are the more the easier suffixes, ER, ED, the S or ES, able and ing. Or I just might drop it and just have the ES, the ED, SES, ED, and ING. But by throwing in these others, you know, I'm getting them to be more aware of them and to think, because I can have danceable, and I can have dancing, and I can have dancer, but I can't necessarily have, well, I can have catchable, catching, catcher, catches. That one works, but there are some of these, which if I had my glasses on, I might see. Like I wouldn't necessarily have whineable. Like the kid can whine, he's whining, he whines, he might be a whiner, but I wouldn't have whineable. So when my student says, I don't think that's a real word, you know, they're still thinking about it and interacting with the word and connecting things to meaning. So it's like, okay, you get points for that. So I just do this, and this is one of my randomizing Google Sheets, and I hit the button and it randomizes the words and it randomizes the suffixes. and we get a new one, and then they're going to write down weeping, and they'll tell me I don't do anything to this. You know, I just add on my suffix, and cracked, add on the suffix, whatever. Of course, it's random. That means you can't predict. And hope. And then how do I add, you know, I hope that he hopes. And that one, what do you do? And subdue. And I have it where I have the list of words here, and the ones that, you know, for certain kids, I'm going to take out words that I know they're not going to read yet. But anyway, so that's what I do. And then I have the same thing with the 1-1-1 rule. And, you know, and I want them to write, okay, they're going to double the P when they add the ER. And then the Y to the I rule. Okay, this one, do we change the Y to the I before we add our suffix? And then I have some with the AY and the EY and the OY. And so they can say, no, we don't change the Y to an I because it is not, you know, the single vowel Y, or it's not a consonant Y, however it is you teach it. And then I have where all of them are together, all the words, you know, some with Y, some with E's and not E's, and some where you have to double the consonant and you don't. So I have it all together, and then they have to work all of it. And sometimes they write it, and sometimes they just orally spell. So those are my most used spelling games. And I call this a game when I give points for it. And for my older students, I might change up the words, but we're still practicing the concept, and then it's not a game, we're just practicing. That I hope that gives you ideas of what I use and what you can do. And I have information on my YouTube channel about how to create these. And then I have some of these for sale on my TPT store for, you know, just a couple of bucks if you want any of these. But there's information on how to make all of these if you want to make it yourself. Okay, I hope that helps.